Alright, welcome back to another episode of GSC. I got Casper here behind me. I put 155 miles on him in the last 2 days. I've been doing a lot of driving, and he's running great. He's staying cool, but he could be cooler. And how could I do that? I could look back into putting an intercooler in this thing. So, a lot of people think that by putting a larger turbo on one of these and keeping the tune conservative or keeping fuel conservative, it's going to keep it cooler. Well, it will to an extent. But whenever you compress air with a turbocharger, you make heat. When you're making heat, you got to find a way to cool it down. And the nice part with these is that GM packaged them so you can't put an intercooler in very easily. You could do an air to water cooler and park it right up here. You can do an air to air, put it here, put it on the skid plate, wherever you see it fit, you can do it. Which is all fun and games, I guess, but realistically, you got to find a way to intercool these. So when I ran an intercooler, it was a 31 by 12 by 3 inch core on the HX35. I saw usually about a max air intake temp of 70 degrees above ambient. Didn't matter if it was 30 degrees outside, didn't matter if it was 100 degrees outside, if I was hauling. That was pretty much what I saw. So that's a pretty significant drop because I was originally seeing intake temps of 285 to 312 degrees when I was towing, which that's pretty darn hot, and obviously that's not going to do the job. So intercooler is important on these in the fact that you cool your intake temp down and your EGTs. Cool air in, cool air out. And the other thing is by cooling your charge temp down, you get denser air. Denser air means more power. So you're seeing benefits on all corners. Yes, you can keep a 6.5 cooler by doing a 99 to 2000 water pump. You can do the Duramax fan upgrade. You can do the clutch upgrade. Thermostat upgrades. There are things you can do to keep a 6.5 cool, but as soon as you start tuning them and playing around and adding power, they like to get warm. So that being said, you got to find a way to keep that intake air temp down and reduce your air temperatures. And in this case, I don't have one on Casper right now because the S300 is kind of big. It takes up more room than an HX40. I'll show you guys kind of how tight it is in here with the 300, and you can get to see why I don't have an intercooler right now. Part of me wants to try to find a way to plumb and send my hot side back over here, cold side over there, and put my 31 by 3 by 12 inch cooler back in the front and just try to get a baseline of how much cooler is cooler. And if I could keep it cooler with the 300, then I'll know that I'm in pretty good shape and going the right direction. So the other thing is that as you add power, you make more heat. So with a stock turbo, or a small turbine housing the HX35, you're making a lot of exhaust heat. Well, if you're making a lot of exhaust heat, you're driving the turbo harder. It's forcing hotter air to be drawn into the inducer side. You're going to get warm air on this side just as much as on that side. And if you're pulling all this hot air and forcing it down the intake tube, chances are good you're just adding temperature to the engine. So, with 6.5s being known for cracking cylinder heads and splitting head gaskets and breaking cylinders because they get too hot, heat is your enemy. On these, it really is the worst thing for them. So you really need to be conscious of keeping your radiators clean, do your cooling system upgrades, and then when you do a turbo upgrade, and especially if you're towing a lot, you need to be mindful of intake temps, and you need to be mindful of, okay, what is going to be my next upgrade to keep this engine cooler? And frankly, if you're doing a turbo swap and you're really getting into it, looking at doing a good intercooler swap. I know this is something that I've talked about before, and I said it was kind of a yay or nay difference, but realistically, if you're going to have a truck that you keep it for a long time and you're working it often, intercooling one of these is the best way to go to keep it. Charge your temp down, get you a couple extra ponies, and keep your EGTs down to help keep everything kind of level playing field. So right now, if I was going to do this again, I would get off a little bit of time and try to either do the Duramax intercooler, or I'll go ahead and do my front mounted cooler. I have no AC in the truck right now. It's 100 degrees outside, so I may or may not do some finagling to see if I can't put air conditioning back in it, and then see what my option is up under the hood to tuck an intercooler in this thing, because it's getting old being this hot. So I'll grab the camera and kind of walk you guys through it, but more power means more heat means more problems. So remember that in the future. And especially if you're doing a lot of towing or you're using your truck for work, if you got an HX40 swap, HX35, really consider taking the time to intercool, because it's going to help you out in the long run. It's going to get your EGTs down, intake air temps down, and it's going to really help the truck perform as a whole. I know that some people like to just slap a turbo on and they like the power. It is fun, don't get me wrong. Doing a turbo swap in a tune or a turbo swap in a modified DB tune they run good. And they're a lot of fun, they tow good, they drive good, but you're still making a lot of heat. So I'll grab the camera and kind of show you guys around the engine bay here, and we'll talk a little more after that. So here's Casper's S300. The exhaust side is not the packaging problem here. The problem is the inducer side here. It is considerably larger than an HX40, and the way that I had my intercooler routed was this was tipped down and faced basically the oil drain, and I brought my charge pipe over went through my grill and came back out the other side. I can easily put the intercooler back in and put my piping on this side. That's not a big deal. It'll all fit. The problem is figuring out how on earth to get this turbo flipped around to the point where I can bring this charge pipe back down and back into the intercooler. So the 300 is a little bit bigger. They're a little more complicated. You can do an air to water cooler and park it right here, put your box in and run your extra radiator out the front, heat exchanger, and it works pretty good. But realistically, I don't know how I'm going to do air to air in this thing. I'm sure there's a way. Where there's a will, there's a way. If I got to flip this around and poke it through the inner fender maybe and run it down and make a scatter shield for it, I could do that. But the other thing is that, yep, everybody can give me crap that I have a hot air intake. I can grab this filter element and it's no hotter than ambient air. Why? I'm pulling from the big holes in the back of the core support and blowing air right from the headlight and right from the grill onto that thing. So, yep, it's a hot air intake all right, but it's still no warmer than ambient. I literally just drove this thing not even 5 minutes ago. So it's worth trying to find ways to get air in, cool your filter elements, get air back through the engine. Eventually what I'd like to do is put the battery back where it goes, put a K47 air box in this and see how it works. But that's a story for another day when I have more projects and more time, which I have too many projects as it is. But when I was talking about your water pump, clutch fan, so I have a 2001 3500 HD clutch in this, a stock 99 fan. I have a 2000 high flow water pump in it. I've got a pair of AC Delco 195 thermostats in it in this truck. During the summertime, even when it's 100 degrees outside, towing a trailer runs a whopping 190 degrees. That's pretty darn cool. And even when I'm just daily driving it, it runs 178 degrees. So it is possible to keep these trucks cool. You just have to know what you're looking at and how you want to go about it. So I just wanted to get you guys a little more info, something to chew on. Remember, turbo swaps are fun. They're great. But if you're going to be working the truck and you've got a pretty hot tune on it, really consider an intercooler, because more fuel, more power, more heat. Now, more power, more heat, got to keep it cool. So take a look, consider an intercooler. If not, enjoy the truck for what it is, use it for what it is, abuse it for what it is, and if it breaks, fix it, do it again and repeat. So I hope this helps some of you guys out that are asking for more info, and maybe my next video will be tearing this thing apart again and putting a new injection pump in it. Maybe one that makes a little more power. So we'll see, and we'll talk in the future. Have a great day, guys.